The message arrived with such abrupt ferocity that it crashed half the communication systems across the Galactic Conclave's central hub. Not a cyber attack, something far more primitive. Raw electromagnetic power, brutally amplified and hurled across space with reckless disregard for protocol or courtesy. Grand Admiral Elixis Vren stared at the decrypted transmission, her 4 violet eyes blinking in asynchronous patterns that signaled extreme agitation to her staff. In 6 centuries of service to the Conclave, she had never encountered anything like this. "Play it again," she commanded, talons tapping against the crystalline console. The holographic display flickered to life once more. "Attention, galactic vessels. This is a Class 1 warning from Earth Defense Command. The Sol System and all associated territories are off-limits to Conclave ships and personnel. Any breach of Earth space will be met with immediate and disproportionate force. This is your only warning. We know you're out there. Stay away." The message repeated in 217 different languages, most of which were completely unknown to the Conclave's vast linguistic databases. "Such inelegance," murmured Sub-Commander Ravik, his thin membrane wings vibrating with distaste. "Clearly a primitive species that stumbled upon faster-than-light communication by accident." Elixis wasn't so certain. She zoomed in on the star chart appended to the transmission. A perfect navigational plot of Conclave territory, with Earth sitting at the edge of uncharted space. Too perfect for a species that shouldn't even know the Conclave existed. "What do we know about this Earth?" she asked. Intelligence Officer Mhorev stepped forward, his exoskeleton clicking softly. "Very little, Admiral. 3rd planet of an unremarkable yellow star. Nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere. We designated it for standard. First contact procedures approximately 300 cycles ago, but the scout vessel never returned." "Never returned?" Elixis's secondary eyes narrowed. "That wasn't in your report." The disappearance was attributed to cosmic phenomena. A micro-quasar eruption was detected in that sector. We dispatched automated probes afterward, but all went silent upon approaching the system's heliosphere. The Grand Admiral stared at the blinking coordinates. Something about this didn't align with standard developmental patterns. Most species took millennia after discovering radio to develop FTL communications, yet these humans had leaped the gap suspiciously fast. "Send a diplomatic vessel," she decided. "Highest stealth protocols, observer class only." Ravik's wings fluttered in alarm. "With respect, Admiral, if they can detect our communications network, stealth may be insufficient. Are you suggesting we ignore the emergence of a potentially hostile civilization on our border, Sub-Commander?" "No, Admiral. I'm suggesting we send more than one ship." 3 days later, the diplomatic vessel's serene inquiry vanished at the edge of the Sol system. Its final transmission contained only 2 words. They knew. Elixis ordered an emergency session of the Conclave High Command. Representatives from all 53 member species gathered in the Grand Chamber beneath the artificial stars of the Conclave capital world. "The humans have destroyed 2 of our vessels now," she began without preamble. "We have 3 options: full diplomatic mission with overwhelming escort, quarantine and containment, or immediate preemptive pacification." First Speaker Osric, ancient and wise, raised a translucent appendage. "Before we decide, we should understand what we're facing. Intelligence Officer Mhorev, your assessment of these humans?" Mhorev stepped into the light, mandibles working nervously. "Our analysis suggests they are paradoxical, technologically uneven, culturally fractious, biologically unremarkable, yet..." He paused. "Exceptionally dangerous." "Explain," demanded Elixis. "They appear to have developed defensive capabilities far beyond their other technologies. It's as if they focused their entire civilization on weaponry while neglecting other advancements. Most concerning of all, they seem to have been watching us for some time." A chill settled over the chamber. The implications were clear. Somewhere, in the vastness of space, a species had evolved in isolation, observed the conclave without being detected, and was now telling the masters of 1,000 worlds to keep their distance. Or else. Fleet Commander Lazari Nix had expected to die the moment her battle group penetrated the outer reaches of the Sol system. The Conclave's most advanced ships, 7 world breakers with enough firepower to sterilize 12 planets, moved through the darkness with all stealth systems engaged. She'd volunteered for this reconnaissance-enforced mission, knowing the previous vessels had never returned. But the Conclave needed information, and Lazari had lost too many friends to mysterious Earth to favor caution now. "Status report," she subvocalized, the ship's neural interface carrying her commands. "Heliosphere penetration in 30 seconds. Commander," came the response from her executive officer, Tamir. "No detection signatures yet. All vessels maintaining formation." Lazari nodded, the movement barely perceptible within her command cradle. The neural gel surrounding her body amplified her thoughts while monitoring vital signs. If the humans had some unknown weapon, she wanted complete sensory data transmitted back to the Conclave. "Anomaly detected." Tamir's voice suddenly tensed. The vacuum around their ships changed. Space itself seemed to thicken, as though they were suddenly moving through heavy liquid instead of void. Lazari felt the massive engines of her dreadnought strain against this impossible resistance. "Unknown spatial distortion," reported the science officer Vestra. "It's not natural, it's constructed. The humans have weaponized space-time itself." Before Lazari could process this information, something massive eclipsed the distant sun. Not a planet or natural body, a construct. A station of impossible proportions appeared where nothing had registered on their sensors moments before. "Receiving transmission," Tamir announced, voice steady despite the fear Lazari could sense through their neural link. A face appeared on the command interface, a bipedal creature with exposed skin and bilateral symmetry, unremarkable by galactic standards, save for the intensity in its eyes. "Conclave vessels," the human spoke in perfect High Imperial, the administrative language of the Galactic Conclave. "You were warned. Earth space is forbidden to your kind." Lazari's training took over. "This is Fleet Commander Lazari Nix of the Galactic Conclave. We come under authority of the Articles of Expansion, which grant us the right to explore all unaligned systems." The human's expression didn't change. "Your articles are meaningless here. You have 5 minutes to reverse course before we respond to this incursion." Lazari felt cold rage building. No minor species had ever dared speak to the Conclave with such disrespect. 7 world breakers could reduce this solar system to rubble. "Perhaps you misunderstand our capabilities," she said. "This fleet carries planet-killing weapons. We seek only information, but—" "4 minutes," the human interrupted, unimpressed. Tamir's voice came through her private channel. "Commander, we're detecting energy buildups throughout the system. Thousands of points. Far more firepower than our intelligence suggested was possible." Lazari hesitated. The Conclave hadn't survived for millennia by rushing into conflicts with unknown variables. "We will withdraw," she finally said, "but the Conclave will not be denied its rightful expansion forever." The human's lips curved slightly upward. "You still don't understand what you're facing. Allow me to educate you." The transmission cut off. Immediately, Lazari's neural interface flooded with data, schematics, historical records, weapon specifications, more. Information then could be processed in a lifetime. The sheer volume threatened to overwhelm their systems. "They're showing us everything," Vestra whispered in shock. "Their military history, their conflicts, their weapons development. Why would they?" And then Lazari understood. It wasn't a data attack. It was a warning. The humans were revealing their capabilities deliberately, showing the documented history of a species that had spent most of its existence fighting itself, perfecting the art of warfare against equally determined opponents. While the Conclave had been expanding peacefully through mostly uninhabited space for millennia, humanity had been forged in constant conflict. They weren't just ready for war. They had practically evolved for it. "Retreat," Lazari ordered, sudden fear gripping her. Maximum speed. As their ships struggled against the spatial distortion, turning back toward Conclave space, a final message came through. "We'll be watching your borders, Commander. Make sure you stay on your side." The fleet escaped intact. The humans had allowed it. But Lazari knew that everything had changed. The Conclave's unchallenged expansion had just met its first true obstacle, and the implications would reshape galactic politics forever. The Conclave chambers had never been so chaotic. Representatives from dozens of species shouted over each other, while Grand Admiral Elixis tried to maintain order. The data package from the human encounter had been analyzed for weeks, and the conclusions were shattering long-held assumptions about galactic development. "Impossible!" roared Delegate Kensu, his lion-like mane bristling with agitation. "No species progresses from atmospheric flight to faster-than-light travel in less than 3 centuries. The technological gaps are too vast." "Yet they did exactly that," replied Morev calmly, mandibles clicking. "What's more remarkable is why they developed so quickly." The intelligence officer activated the central hologram, displaying a timeline of human technological advancement. Red spikes indicated major wars, correlating almost perfectly with subsequent leaps in capability. Their advancement wasn't gradual. It came in bursts, each following periods of global conflict. They developed nuclear weapons, spaceflight capabilities, and quantum computing all within a single species' lifetime. Most concerning of all is this. The display shifted to show a classified file recovered from Earth's data package, labeled the Harvest Protocol. First speaker. Osric leaned forward. "Explain this document." Morev's exoskeleton seemed to pale. Approximately 70 Earth years ago, their world detected the energy signature of our initial survey probe. Instead of attempting communication, they captured it. A shocked murmur ran through the chamber. "That's not possible," Elixis objected. "Our probes self-destruct if tampered with." "They bypassed our safeguards using methods we still don't understand," Morev continued. "But what they did next was even more remarkable. They reverse-engineered our technology, but didn't implement it immediately. Instead, they established something called the Fence, a defensive perimeter around their entire solar system, and began watching us, studying us, learning our languages, mapping our territories, understanding our capabilities." The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. "You're saying they've been observing the Conclave for decades without our knowledge?" Delegate Kensu asked, voice hushed. "Yes. And they made a deliberate decision not to announce themselves until their defenses were ready." The Harvest Protocol. Was their contingency plan if the Conclave proved hostile? They would use our own technology against us, systematically harvesting more advanced weaponry from any ships we sent. Elixis felt a cold dread settle over her. The missing scout ship? The diplomatic vessel? Precisely. Each encounter taught them more about us. The humans weren't just defending their territory. They were using our intrusions to leap forward technologically. First speaker. Osric's ancient voice cut through the tension. "What do they want?" A new figure stepped forward, Professor Ilana Morix, the Conclave's foremost xenoanthropologist. Her species had evolved from avian predators, giving her a unique perspective on territorial behavior. Based on their communications and the data they provided, she said, they want exactly what they've stated, to be left alone. Humans appear to be fundamentally isolationist toward outside civilizations while remaining internally competitive. Their history suggests they unite fiercely against external threats while maintaining complex rivalries among themselves. So, They have no interest in joining the conclave? Elixis asked. Quite the opposite. They view the very concept of our galactic governance with suspicion. Their literature is filled with cautionary tales about losing independence to larger powers. Fleet. Commander Lazari Nix, still recovering from her encounter, spoke up from her position at the back of the chamber. There's something else in their transmission that intelligence may have missed. Something cultural rather than technological. The chamber turned toward her. When they said, "Stay away," it wasn't just a threat. There was pride in their isolation. Almost as if they're protecting us as much as themselves. Professor Morix nodded eagerly. Commander Nix has identified something critical. My team found recurring themes in their transmitted culture. Stories where humans appear weak but overcome. Vastly superior outside forces through determination, sacrifice, and unpredictable tactics. They don't just believe they can defeat us. They're absolutely certain of it. The implications hung heavy in the air. The conclave had encountered thousands of species over its long history, but none quite like humanity. A civilization that had deliberately hidden its development, studied its neighbors in secret, and now possessed technology that could potentially challenge the entire galactic order. We need a new approach, Elixis finally said. Traditional diplomatic or military options won't work here. First Speaker Osric nodded slowly. Perhaps it's time to accept that some boundaries are not meant to be crossed. At least not yet. Oriel Casteros stood alone on the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel Voice of Harmony, watching as the massive defensive structure the humans called the Fence loomed before them. Unlike previous conclave ships, they had approached openly, broadcasting their peaceful intentions on all frequencies. As the sole representative chosen for this unprecedented mission, Oriel felt the weight of 1,000 worlds on her shoulders. Her species, the Lumerians, were among the oldest conclave members, natural empaths with an evolutionary history of mediation between conflicting groups. "Ambassador," came the ship's artificial voice, "we're receiving coordinates for approach. The humans are allowing a single shuttle through their defensive perimeter." Oriel nodded, her luminescent skin pulsing with nervous anticipation. "Prepare my shuttle. No escorts." The captain's concerned voice cut in. "Ambassador Casteros, protocol requires—" "Protocol won't help us here, Captain," she interrupted gently. "The humans have made their terms clear. One representative, unarmed." Hours later, Oriel's shuttle passed through an invisible boundary in space. The sensation was subtle. A slight vibration as the craft transitioned from normal space into whatever engineered continuum the humans had created as their first line of defense. Ahead loomed an artificial structure unlike anything in Conclave. Archives, not the sleek organic designs of most advanced civilizations, but something brutally functional. A space station constructed from what appeared to be repurposed asteroid material, bristling with weapon systems and communication arrays. The shuttle's systems chirped as external control took over, guiding it toward a docking bay. Oriel composed herself, reviewing what little intelligence they had on human diplomatic customs. When the airlock finally opened, she found herself facing not a military delegation, but a single human. Taller than expected, with dark skin and eyes that reflected the stars behind her. "Ambassador Casteros," the human said, extending a hand. A greeting gesture, according to their briefings. "I am Director Kira Novak, Earth Defense Command. Welcome to Gateway Station." Oriel completed the customary handshake, feeling the strange warmth of human skin. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting, Director Novak. The Conclave seeks understanding, not conflict." Novak's expression remained neutral. "Follow me." They walked through corridors that mixed utilitarian design with surprising touches of beauty. Artwork depicting Earth landscapes, cosmic phenomena, and abstract concepts adorned the walls at irregular intervals. "Your defensive perimeter is remarkable," Oriel ventured. "We've never encountered anything quite like it." The fence was necessary, Novak replied without slowing. We observed your expansion patterns. The Conclave's history of uplifting species often destroys their cultural uniqueness. Earth has no interest in becoming another homogenized member of your collective. That's a misunderstanding of our intentions, Oriel said carefully. The Conclave preserves diversity while offering benefits of shared knowledge. They entered, a chamber with a transparent ceiling, revealing Earth floating in the distance, a blue-green jewel against the blackness of space. Is it a misunderstanding? Novak asked, gesturing toward a display showing thousands of worlds. These civilizations joined your conclave at various stages of development. Within 3 generations, their technological paths, governance systems, and even cultural expressions began converging toward conclave standards. Oriel hadn't expected such thorough research. Convergent evolution of societies is natural when it's assimilation, Novak interrupted firmly. Perhaps benevolent, perhaps unintentional, but the result is the same. We've studied every species in your database that your ships so conveniently carried. The most unique were those who maintained some degree of isolation. The human pressed a control, and the display shifted to Earth's history, a chaotic timeline of warring nations gradually unifying but never fully homogenizing. Humanity's strength comes from our differences, Ambassador. Our competing systems, our cultural diversity, even our conflicts, drive our innovation. We won't sacrifice that for the stability you offer. Oriel felt the genuine conviction behind these words. As an empath, she sensed no deception, only fierce determination and something else. Fear? Not of the Conclave's military might, but of something more existential. You fear losing your identity, she realized aloud. Novak nodded slowly. Throughout our history, whenever cultures met with significant technological disparity, the less advanced inevitably became absorbed into the greater, losing what made them unique. We refuse to become a footnote in conclave history. Then what do you propose? Oriel asked. Complete isolation cannot be sustained indefinitely. Limited engagement, Novak replied. Designated meeting points outside Sol system. Controlled, cultural and scientific exchange. But Earth remains off-limits, our development path our own. For the first time in conclave history, a newly discovered civilization was dictating terms rather than gratefully accepting membership. Yet Oriel sensed the humans would not be swayed from this position, and attempting to force the issue would likely end in disaster. I will bring your proposal to the conclave, she said finally, but understand that such an arrangement is unprecedented. Novak smiled for the first time, a small expression that carried surprising warmth. Everything about humanity is unprecedented, Ambassador. That's precisely what we're protecting. The sacred halls of Mount Axiom fell silent as the Conclave's ruling council convened for its centennial session. Representatives from across the galaxy had journeyed to this ancient place, the birthplace of the Conclave itself, to address what many now called the human question. Grand Admiral Elixis, now elevated to Supreme Strategist after her handling of the initial human contact, stood before the assembled leaders of 1,000 worlds. Beside her, Ambassador Oriel Casteros waited with characteristic serenity despite the momentous nature of the proceedings. Honored representatives, Elixis began, her voice carrying across the natural acoustics of the crystalline chamber. For 9 standard months, we have deliberated on the terms proposed by Earth. Today, we must decide our course. The vast chamber, carved from a mountain of living crystal that amplified psionic abilities and facilitated deeper understanding between species, hummed with tension. At the center dais, the 7 founders, representatives of the original species, that formed the conclave, prepared to hear final arguments. Chancellor Vox, eldest of the founders, raised a gnarled appendage. Before we vote, let us hear once more from those who have directly engaged with these humans. Ambassador Castaros, your assessment? Oriel stepped forward, her luminescent skin casting gentle patterns across the chamber floor. In my extensive interactions with Earth's representatives, I have confirmed what we initially suspected. They are paradoxical by nature. Fiercely independent, yet capable of remarkable unity. Technologically uneven, yet ingenious in specific domains. Their proposal for limited engagement is not born from arrogance, but from a genuine desire to preserve their evolutionary path. And the risk they pose? Asked another founder, her crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns. Considerable, Oriel admitted. Their defensive capabilities continue to advance at an unprecedented rate. More concerning is what we've learned about their history. They've survived multiple near-extinction events of their own making. Such resilience suggests they would be formidable if provoked into full conflict. The chamber murmured with unease. Species that survived self-inflicted extinction events were rare and universally dangerous. Fleet Commander Lazarine Nix stepped forward next, her military posture unchanged despite the prestigious council. My analysis of human military capability suggests they have devoted approximately 30% of their total resources to defense, an extraordinary proportion during peacetime. Their weapons technology appears designed specifically to counter our standard tactical approaches. How could they know our tactics without prior contact? Demanded one of the regional governors. They've been watching us for longer than we realized, Lazari replied grimly. The data they extracted from our ships and probes was enough for them to develop targeted countermeasures. Their entire defensive doctrine assumes conflict with technologically superior forces. Chancellor Vox's ancient eyes narrowed. You believe they expect war? They prepare for it while hoping for peace, Lazari said. A distinctly human approach. From what we've observed, Intelligence Officer Morev chittered softly before speaking. There is another factor to consider. Our latest analysis suggests that human technological development is still accelerating. If current trends continue, they will surpass Conclave capabilities in key military domains within 50 years. This revelation sent shockwaves through the assembly. No species had ever outpaced the collective advancement of the Conclave. How is this possible? Demanded one of the economic directors. Their competitive nature drives innovation at rates we don't fully understand, Morev explained. While Conclave members share advancements equally, a more efficient system overall, humans' internal rivalries create evolutionary pressure that produces occasional revolutionary leaps rather than steady progress. The 7 founders conferred privately through their psionic link, their physical forms glowing with increased activity. Finally, Chancellor Vox addressed the assembly once more. We face an unprecedented situation. For 10,000 years, the Conclave has expanded through space, incorporating worlds into our peaceful collective. Now we encounter a species that explicitly rejects our core principle of shared advancement. He turned to Elixis. Supreme Strategist, your recommendation? Elixis had prepared for this moment for months. Her research had taken her deep into ancient Conclave archives, seeking precedents that might guide their response. What she found had changed her perspective entirely. Honored representatives, she began, I have studied our earliest records from the time before the Conclave's formation. I discovered something remarkable. The original purpose of our union was not standardization, but preservation of diversity against a long-forgotten threat. Somewhere along our journey, this purpose became diminished. A murmur of surprise rippled through the chamber. Few living beings had access to those ancient records. The humans remind us of something we have forgotten. That true resilience comes from diversity of approach. I recommend we accept their terms for limited engagement. More than that, I propose we establish a new designation in our cosmopolitical framework. Sovereign anomaly, a civilization recognized as following its own evolutionary path outside conclave protocols while maintaining diplomatic relations. The proposal was revolutionary. For millennia, the conclave had operated on the principle that all advanced civilizations would naturally choose integration when presented with its benefits. The idea of formally recognizing an alternative path challenged fundamental assumptions. And, if they become a threat? Asked one of the military commanders. Then we will have maintained diplomatic channels that might prevent conflict, Alexis replied. But I believe the greater threat lies in forcing them to choose between subjugation and isolation. Every analysis of human history suggests they respond to such pressures with unpredictable creativity, often violent. As the final deliberations began, Ambassador Auriel added one last observation that would prove decisive. In all my encounters with humans, their greatest fear was not destruction, but the loss of their ability to choose their own destiny. Perhaps we should consider that what makes them dangerous is also what makes them worthy of our respect. 10 years after the historic Axiom Accords established humanity's unique status in galactic politics, Alexis found herself approaching Earth for the first time. The diplomatic shuttle glided through a designated corridor in the fence, now recognized as sovereign human territory, despite extending far beyond traditional planetary boundaries. Accompanying her was Auriel Casteros, whose successful negotiations had earned her legend status across the conclave, and Lazari Nix, whose military assessments had convinced even the most hawkish conclave members that conflict with humanity would be catastrophically costly. "It's beautiful," Auriel murmured as Earth came into view, its blue-white presence dominating the viewport. Their transmissions never captured the true colors. "Focus on the orbital infrastructure," Lazari countered, her military mind ever present. "They've expanded significantly since our last intelligence update. Indeed, Earth now boasted a complex network of habitats, defense platforms, and what appeared to be massive construction facilities. The humans had been busy. Their shuttle was guided to a new diplomatic station called Threshold, positioned at Earth-Moon L1, close enough to showcase Earth's beauty while maintaining a comfortable buffer for the security-conscious humans. Director. Kira Novak waited for them in the arrival chamber, flanked by a diverse group of human representatives. The years had added slight silver streaks to her dark hair, but her posture remained commanding. Supreme Strategist Alexis, Ambassador Casteros, "Commander Nix," she greeted them with practiced ease. "Welcome to Threshold. You honor us with your presence." The formalities continued as they moved through the station toward the central conference chamber, a magnificent room with a transparent ceiling offering uninterrupted views of both Earth and its moon. "Before we begin the formal review of the Axiom Accords," Novak said once they were seated, "there's something we'd like to show you." A holographic display activated in the center of the chamber, showing a star system none of them recognized. "This is Proxima Centauri," explained one of the human delegates, a woman introduced as Dr. Elara Voss, Earth's foremost xenoastrophysicist. "The nearest star system to Earth. 3 weeks ago, our settlement there detected something unusual approaching from interstellar space." The hologram zoomed in to show an object of clearly artificial design, but unlike any conclave or human vessel, Alexis felt her 4 eyes widen in surprise. "You've established settlements beyond your solar system? That wasn't disclosed in our agreements." "The Axiom Accord specified Earth's solar system as sovereign territory," Novak replied smoothly. "Our expansion to nearby stars falls within our right to development, but that's not the important part of what we're showing you." The hologram enhanced further, revealing details of the unknown vessel, organic-looking, with strange protrusions, that seemed to phase in and out of normal space. "This ship doesn't match any design in Conclave records," Lazari noted immediately, leaning forward with professional interest. "No," agreed Novak. "It doesn't match anything in your records because you've never encountered them before. We have." A stunned silence fell over the chamber. "Explain," Elixis finally managed. Dr. Voss took over the presentation. Approximately 200 Earth years ago, before we had achieved spaceflight, our astronomers detected anomalous signals from the direction of the galactic core. We've been monitoring them ever since. As our technology improved, we realized these weren't natural phenomena, but evidence of an expanding civilization, one moving outward from the core toward the spiral arms. The hologram shifted to show a map of the galaxy with an ominous shadow spreading outward from the center, slowly but inexorably. "We call them the Void Collective," Novak continued. "They don't communicate in any format we recognize. They simply consume. Resources, data, technology, everything they encounter. Based on their expansion pattern, they should have reached conclave space approximately 3,000 years ago." "Impossible," Lazari objected. "We would have detected such an incursion." "Not if they deliberately avoided you," Dr. Voss countered. "Our analysis suggests they're following an expansion pattern that specifically circumnavigated conclave territory. They've been expanding around you, not toward you." Elixis felt a cold realization dawning. "You're suggesting they fear the conclave?" "Not exactly," Novak said. "We believe they've been avoiding you while building up their strength. The vessel we detected is a scout, the first of many. They're finally ready to test your defenses." Oriel's empathic abilities sensed no deception from the humans, only grave concern tinged with something like relief. "Why show us this now?" she asked quietly. Novak exchanged glances with her colleagues before answering. "Because the real reason we established the fence wasn't to keep the conclave out. It was to prepare for them." She gestured toward the hologram of the alien vessel. "Everything we've done, our accelerated military development, our defensive innovations, our insistence on maintaining independence, was in preparation for the Void Collective." "You knew they were coming," Elixis breathed. "The implications, staggering. We projected their arrival within the next century," Dr. Voss confirmed. "They're ahead of schedule." Lazari's military mind was already racing ahead. "But why hide this from the conclave? We could have prepared together." Novak's expression hardened slightly. "Would you have believed us? A primitive species claiming to have detected a threat your advanced civilization had missed for millennia? More likely, you would have accelerated your integration of Earth to access our research, destroying the very independence that might give us a fighting chance against them." The accusation hung in the air, uncomfortable but not entirely unfounded. Conclave protocol would indeed have prioritized assimilation of human knowledge rather than partnership. "What are you proposing now?" Elixis finally asked. "A true alliance," Novak said firmly. "Not assimilation, but cooperation between equals. The Conclave has numbers, established infrastructure, and thousands of years of collective knowledge. Humanity has specialized defensive innovations and unconventional tactical approaches that the Void Collective won't have encountered before." She gestured toward the viewport, where Earth shone brilliantly against the darkness. "This isn't just about humanity's survival anymore. The Void Collective represents an existential threat to all sapient life in the galaxy. The Conclave's standardized approach makes you predictable to enemies who study patterns. Our chaotic innovation makes us adaptable but limits our scale. Together we might stand a chance." As the implications settled over the Conclave delegation, Elixis realized that everything had changed once again. The humans had never been merely protecting their independence out of pride or fear. They had been preparing for a threat the Conclave hadn't even detected. "If what you're saying is true," she said carefully, "then the Axiom Accords were just the beginning." "Yes," Novak agreed, extending her hand in the human gesture of partnership. "The real question is whether the Conclave is ready to embrace a new kind of alliance, one based not on assimilation but on complementary strengths." Elixis looked at the human hand extended toward her, then at the image of the alien vessel hovering between them, harbinger of a storm that could engulf the galaxy. The humans had prepared for this moment for generations, developing in isolation specifically to maintain the diversity of approach that might prove crucial against a homogenizing enemy. With sudden clarity, she understood the true significance of humanity's warning that had crashed into Conclave systems years ago. Access denied hadn't just been about keeping others out. It had been about preserving something essential within. She reached out and clasped Novak's hand, sealing a pact that would forever alter the course of galactic history. "We are ready." The transmission from Earth had started as a warning. It would end as salvation.